Is career positioning just completely broken? Or actually, let's take it a step further. What if the entire way we've been taught to think about professional networking is just the wrong approach entirely? Look, we live in an era where AI is literally reshaping every conceivable career path. Yet somehow most of us are still out here trying to navigate this massive shift using tools and really mindsets from a totally bygone era.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating paradigm shift in exactly how we connect, collaborate, and ultimately build our life's work. We're talking about moving completely away from extractive networking and stepping right into the future of professional alignment. It's a massive transition from centralized platforms to open source substrates. And honestly, the reason this absolutely matters to you right now is that the old rules, climbing the traditional corporate ladder, they're fundamentally disintegrating. The way you're going to find your next big opportunity, maybe your next co-founder, or even your true calling, it's shifting from just competing for attention to structurally aligning your actual capabilities. I'm super excited to share this with you because it completely reframes how you position yourself in the world. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to map out this journey across 5 key areas. We'll start by diagnosing the professional alignment crisis, then look at how precision self-knowledge acts as the cure. From there, we'll zoom out to the rise of ecosystem platforms, check out the game-changing substrate strategy, and finally look at how the multi-patron architecture makes this all commercially viable. So, part 1, the professional alignment crisis. Right now, we're basically witnessing the collapse of the industrial age identity. For decades, the system has just demanded that we, perform our employability, fitting ourselves into these neat, linear, hierarchical boxes, instead of actually expressing our true capabilities and unique gifts. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the iceberg analogy perfectly captures this reality. The tip of the iceberg represents the signal we broadcast: resumes, job titles, keyword stuff, social bios. It's superficial, highly compressed, and let's be real, it essentially makes us look exactly like everybody else. But beneath the surface, that's where your massive hidden assets actually live: your lifelong mission, your deep capabilities, your unique creative expression. Our current system just completely misses this depth because it only ever looks at the tip. And that brings us to a pretty profound realization. Self-description quality actually determines opportunity quality. When we flatten ourselves into standard resume language, we're actively destroying our own discoverability. Think about what this looks like in the real world: chasing buzzwords on a LinkedIn profile, constantly rebranding yourself to match whatever generic job description you happen to be applying for, all at the expense of showing what you're genuinely brilliant at. We under-articulate who we are, and we overperform these status templates. But when your self-understanding is highly precise and clearly legible, you dramatically increase the probability of finding true, meaningful professional alignment. Which brings us to part 2, self-knowledge as the catalyst. So if the crisis here is a lack of legibility, the solution at the individual level is leveraging AI-powered precision self-knowledge to really unlock that meaningful career alignment. And this isn't just about finding a job, right? It's about semantic identity infrastructure. Now, you might be wondering who actually needs this level of precision. Well, the answer is kind of everyone. A universal alignment layer benefits founders looking for exact co-creator fits, creators turning their unique perspectives into real opportunities, schools, and even decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs. DAOs and incubators, for instance, they rely heavily on rapid, trust-based collaboration. They don't have these massive traditional HR departments to vet cultural and technical fit over months. They need to know instantly if someone's deep capabilities align with the project's core mission. Deep, accurate self-knowledge isn't just some niche tool. It's a universal primitive for human coordination. The core realization here is that self-knowledge is the philosopher's stone. It literally is the entrepreneurial path. And we're seeing this come to life right now through tools like Vocation's AI-generated working vision card. Instead of spending days, endlessly tweaking a CV to sound palatable to some rigid algorithm, users go through a guided AI-powered discovery process. The AI acts like this highly attuned interviewer, asking dynamic questions that actually dig past that superficial tip of the iceberg layer. In just minutes, it captures exactly who you are, what your true assets are, and where you're headed. This creates a deeply authentic, standardized profile that can just instantly plug into different platforms. It's a total game changer. All right, let's move to part 3, the rise of ecosystem platforms. We've looked at the individual psychology of career alignment, but now let's zoom out to the macro level to see the organizations and platforms actively assembling to solve this aligning crisis at scale. To understand this macro shift, we have to define a dense but absolutely crucial term: coordination infrastructure. We're fundamentally shifting away from siloed platforms that hoard data and centralize visibility and moving toward connective, living systems. Think of it like moving from a high-walled garden where one massive landlord controls who gets to see the flowers to a bustling open market where anyone can set up a stall and freely connect with anyone else. These open systems are explicitly designed to enable trust-based matchmaking, meaningful collaboration, and shared value creation across highly decentralized, federated communities.
And it brilliantly illustrates how the pieces of this new world are independently assembling themselves across different platforms. For example, you've got Planether building the social network and token-governed comments. You have Vocavating building the AI career positioning and assessment layer we just talked about. You have CoOwn providing collaborative software-as-a-service spaces. And you have FRIPT providing the underlying open-source substrate that connects it all together. They're each holding a distinct, specialized piece of a much larger architectural puzzle, working in concert rather than trying to build standalone winner-take-all monopolies. Just to give you a sense of the sheer ambition here, 144,000. That is the number of active users the Planeteer ecosystem aims to reach by 2027, scaling across more than 200 communities. Now, hitting 144,000 users on a centralized app like Instagram might not sound massive, but hitting that number across completely decentralized, sovereign communities, that is fundamentally different. It requires genuine opt-in alignment rather than just cheap algorithmic manipulation. It's significantly harder to build, for sure, but vastly more rewarding because it creates a highly engaged foundational infrastructure for a completely new kind of regenerative economy.
Which leads us perfectly into part 4, the substrate strategy. So how do you actually build the tech to support that kind of decentralized scale without just becoming a monopoly yourself? This is really the climax of our narrative, the monumental difference between trying to build the biggest platform versus building the underlying rails that all platforms run on. We have to contrast the extractive past with the regenerative future. The old world was defined by companies like Facebook, right? Winner-take-all, highly centralized systems that essentially captured users and locked them in. The future being built right now looks a lot more like the W3C or Linux. It's open source. It relies on federated models where each community remains totally sovereign, but they share an interoperable protocol underneath. This is massive for the end user because it means you actually own your data, your identity, and your reputation, and you can move freely between different communities without having to start from scratch every single time. But there's a massive strategic pitfall here. Trying to be both the substrate and the biggest platform is exactly what kills coordination plays. Think about it. Why would a community trust you if you're quietly trying to steal their users? If you try to be the underlying protocol but also compete with your users for attention, you lose neutrality and you lose trust. The winning move is actually to stay small as an organization, supply the foundational open source layer, and let the substrate compound across all the platforms that plug into it. Let's move to part 5 and see how this builds into the multi-patron architecture. It's great to talk about open source Rails, but how do you actually deploy this commercially? Like, how do you go to market when your product is an invisible substrate? You deploy it by shifting from the Medici strategy to the Leonardo strategy. The old way, the Medici way, is to court one massive patron or enterprise client, just crossing your fingers and hoping they say yes to funding your whole vision. That creates incredibly high dependency. If they pull out, you're dead in the water. The Leonardo strategy, on the other hand, is about arming many courts or many ecosystems simultaneously. You do this through white label deployment. It's a structural scale strategy that allows many different platforms to run their own custom skin of your open source Rails without them needing to reinvent the entire underlying infrastructure themselves. And the tactical way to execute this is something called demo as hospitality. Instead of pitching an ecosystem leader on why they desperately need your infrastructure, you actually just build their white label skin first. You show, you don't tell. By walking in and saying, hey, here's what your custom storefront on these Rails already looks like, you completely bypass the friction. This is so radically different from the needy, begging pitch of traditional B2B tech sales. It transforms a standard sales transaction into a genuine active service. You're flipping a pitch into a high-leverage invitation to collaborate. So, the crucial point here is that in this emerging landscape, you're no longer just a passive user mindlessly consuming a feed. As the Planeteer vision beautifully puts it, you don't just participate, you co-create the world we know is possible. The combination of AI-driven precision self-knowledge and these federated open-source platforms gives you the actual agency to align your unique, deep gifts with the people and projects that genuinely matter. It's an absolutely incredible shift from just performing for the industrial machine to expressing your true capability in a regenerative ecosystem. Which leaves us with one final essential question to ask ourselves as we navigate our own careers. What layer are you currently building on?
Are you out there fighting for visibility on a centralized platform? Or are you building your life's work on a substrate that truly aligns with your mission?